Welcome back. Today we are diving into an ancient book that honestly reads like a modern thriller, and it sits right at the heart of a huge debate.
So, what if a book of the Bible read like a political thriller and never once mentioned God? I mean, that's the central mystery of the Book of Esther, right? It's this incredible, gripping tale of suspense and survival, but the one figure you'd absolutely expect to see just isn't there.
And the story kicks off with something just chilling. An empire-wide death decree. We're talking about a plot to wipe out an entire people, the Jews, across the whole Persian Empire. And who's their only hope? Well, it's a young Jewish woman who's just become the queen. But here's the catch. Nobody knows she's Jewish. Not even the king himself. Her identity is a complete secret.
So you've got this high-stakes game of palace intrigue, incredible courage, and a whole people's fate hanging in the balance. It's got everything. But the big question, the one we're here to talk about, is, did any of this actually happen? All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so for a long time, most scholars just wrote Esther off as, a piece of fiction, a historical novel maybe. But when you start digging a little deeper, you find some surprisingly accurate details that, well, they make you wonder.
And this is where the pro-history argument gets really interesting. Some scholars are saying, hold on, maybe the author wasn't just making this stuff up. It seems like whoever wrote this had some serious inside knowledge of the Persian court, details that even other ancient historians got wrong.
And we're not talking about vague general stuff. Look at this list. The empire's boundaries from India to Ethiopia. That's spot on for Xerxes' time. There's even a loan document that puts Xerxes in the capital, Susa, in his 3rd year, exactly when the book says this big feast happened. All these little things, the 7 counselors, sending out edicts in local languages, recording the names of benefactors, it all lines up with what we know about the Persian court. These are the kinds of details that suggest the author really knew what they were talking about.
So, as one expert puts it, it really seems like the author had access to sources directly related to the Persian Empire. This isn't just someone spinning a folktale. The evidence points to someone who is much closer to the action. Okay, but now we have to look at the other side of the coin. Because for every one of those convincing little details, there's a massive historical problem that's really hard to ignore.
And this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? It's the core problem. The book claims Xerxes' queen was a Jewish orphan named Esther. But history tells us his queen was a Mahestress, a super powerful Persian noble. The book says there were 127 provinces. Historians say it was more like 20 to 30. And this whole idea that the king couldn't take back his own decrees, there's just no evidence for that. It's like the author gets the tiny details right but whiffs on the biggest, most obvious facts.
And it gets worse. Think about it. A massive empire-wide battle where over 75,000 people die? You'd think someone else would have written that down. But crickets. Total silence from other historical sources. Then there's Mordecai. If he was exiled when the book says he was, he'd be impossibly old. And Esther becoming queen in 480 BCE? That's the year Xerxes was off invading Greece. These aren't just little goofs. They're huge problems that make most scholars today say, yeah, this has to be a story, a legend.
So, where does that leave us? Is it history with a few mistakes, or just pure fiction? But what if? What if that's the wrong way to even ask the question? What if we've been looking at it all wrong?
Let's try something different. Let's stop treating the Book of Esther like a history textbook and start looking at it for what it might be, an absolutely brilliant piece of literary art.
The whole secret might be in its structure. It's built as a perfect chiasm. Now, that's just a fancy word for a literary structure where everything happens in reverse order in the second half. A, B, C, then a turning point, then C, B, A. It's like a story palindrome. Everything builds to the middle and then perfectly unwinds.
So let's watch how this works in the first half. The king has a feast, Queen Vashti gets the boot. That opens the door for Esther, who becomes the new queen. Then her cousin Mordecai saves the king's life. But then, the villain, Haman, shows up, plots to kill all the Jews, and even builds a gallows specifically for Mordecai. The tension is just ratcheting up and up. It looks like it's all over.
And then this happens. This is the pivot, the exact middle of the book. The king can't sleep one night, so he has the royal records read to him. And what do you know? He's reminded that Mordecai saved his life. So he asks Haman, of all people, hey, how should I honor someone amazing? Haman, thinking the king means him, describes this huge, elaborate public honor. And then the king says, great idea. Go do all that for Mordecai the Jew. Bam. That's the moment the whole story flips on its head.
And now, watch the reversal. Haman ends up hanged on the very gallows he built for Mordecai. Mordecai gets promoted and is given the king's ring. Esther saves her people, foiling the plot. And the story, which started with the king's feast, now ends with the Jews' feast. Every single point from the first half gets a perfect mirrored reversal in the second.
You see, this structure isn't just the author being clever. The structure is the point. The whole book is designed to tell a story about turning the world completely upside down.
And this idea of reversal isn't just confined to the pages of the book. It's lived out every single year in the Jewish holiday of Purim. The name Purim actually means lots, named for the lots Haman cast to decide when to destroy the Jews. It's a day of feasting, not mourning. People wear costumes, hiding their identity just like Esther did. They use these noisemakers to blot out the villain's name. It's literally a celebration of turning things upside down.
So in the end, it almost doesn't matter if it's 100% historically accurate. What matters is that this story became a powerful paradigm, a blueprint for hope for Jewish communities facing threats for thousands of years. It's a story that says, yes, the world can be turned upside down, and the intended victims can triumph.
Which brings us back to the big question. Is a story's truth found only in its facts, or is it found in the survival it inspires? Maybe the real power of Esther isn't about whether it happened exactly like this, but in the deeper truth it tells about hope and endurance against impossible odds.